Imagine clocking out on a Thursday afternoon, right? You're looking at your timesheet and you realize you've somehow managed to squeeze an extra 33 hours of highly productive work into your week.
Right, which sounds completely impossible.
Totally. You didn't work nights, you didn't skip lunch, but your output is suddenly that of, like, nearly 2 people.
I mean, it sounds like pure science fiction or a really bad math error in payroll.
Exactly. But that is the staggering reality we're actually looking at today. Welcome to our deep dive into the source materials making this a reality. Today we're exploring a seriously groundbreaking article by Jonathan H. Westover, PhD. It's titled The Agentic Edge Mastering AI in Human Collaboration.
Yeah, and this piece, it draws heavily on some massive 2025 IDC research.
And honestly, the implications are just blowing my mind.
Oh, absolutely. And our mission for this deep dive is to completely strip away that sci-fi hype. We really want to unpack the actual mechanics of what this new wave of agentic AI actually is.
Right, getting past the buzzwords.
Exactly. How early adopter companies are deploying it right now to gain truly insurmountable competitive advantages, and, what this massive seismic shift means for your own career and your daily workflow.
Because this isn't some distant theoretical future. I mean, this is happening right now in enterprise environments across the globe. We are fast approaching a reality where Generation Alpha kids born after 2010, they will literally never know a workplace without autonomous AI colleagues.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand how in the world 33 hours are being saved per person per week, we first have to understand what this tool actually is and, how it's fundamentally different from the AI most of us have already gotten used to.
Yeah, because there is a monumental leap from what we call generative AI to agentic AI.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the IDC research provides a very clear functional definition. An AI agent is an autonomous software entity powered by large language models. But the critical distinction is this three-part loop. It can perceive its environment, make decisions, and then actually act upon them.
See, generative AI feels very bounded to me. Like, it's a single interaction, you give it a prompt, right?
Right, exactly.
And it gives you a draft of an email, or it summarizes the PDF, and then it just stops.
Yeah.
It just sits there and waits for your next command.
That's the perfect way to describe it. Agentic AI, on the other hand, handles multi-step processes across completely different systems without anyone holding its hand.
It's doing things on its own.
Yes, and think about the mechanics of that leap. Generative AI uses a large language model simply to, predict the next word in a sequence to create text.
Right.
Agentic AI uses that exact same large language model as a reasoning engine. When faced with a complex goal, the agent uses the LLM to parse the environment, break that massive goal down into smaller subtasks, and then decide which software tool to use to accomplish each step.
Let me put a real-world workflow to this based on the text just to make it concrete. If you're using generative AI, it helps you draft some marketing copy. Cool. But an AI agent takes that to a whole new level.
Oh, totally.
It monitors your inbox. That's the perceive part. It reads an incoming email from a client, uses its reasoning engine to determine that the client needs a project update. So there's the decide part.
Exactly.
Then it actually goes into your company's CRM system, retrieves the specific context for that exact client, drafts the reply, cross-references your calendar to schedule a follow-up meeting, sends the email, and updates the CRM with the new status. That's the act part, all autonomously.
And the craziest part is it executes all of those API calls and data retrievals while you are working on a completely different project.
Wow.
It's just operating in the background, constantly running that perceive, decide, and act loop.
So generative AI is like having a brilliant brainstorming buddy who helps you write a pitch. But agentic AI is like having an autonomous chief of staff who takes that pitch, emails the client, books the meeting, and updates the database while you're literally sleeping.
That's a great analogy. And what's fascinating here is that the concept of software agents isn't actually new.
Wait, really?
Yeah, if you look at human-computer interaction research, people like Patty Mays were writing about software agents that could reduce workload way back in 1994.
1994. I mean, we were still dealing with dial-up internet and floppy disks back then.
I know, it's crazy. But those pre-LLM agents were incredibly brittle. They didn't possess natural language understanding, so they couldn't adapt to unstructured data.
So if you didn't do it exactly right, it broke.
Precisely. If a user sent an email that didn't perfectly match a pre-programmed template, the 1994 agent would just completely break down. You had to explicitly code every single contingency.
Which is impossible in the real world.
Right. Large language models fix that brittleness. Because an LLM understands the semantic meaning behind human language, the agent can encounter a completely novel, messy, unexpected situation and still infer what needs to be done without explicit programming.
Just get the gist of it.
Exactly. That flexibility is what has finally made them enterprise ready.
Okay, so that adaptability brings us to the actual stakes here. Because now that we understand the underlying mechanism of these agents, we really have to look at why adoption is happening at this unprecedented breakneck speed.
The stakes are huge.
The financial and competitive stakes are massive. According to the IDC data, despite all the economic uncertainty out there right now, 51% of global companies are actually increasing their IT spend.
Yeah, and AI investment is ranking second only to security and compliance in those budgets. Tech and finance are really leading the charge there.
What about other sectors?
Well, healthcare and manufacturing are moving a bit more cautiously, mostly due to regulatory hurdles, which makes sense.
Sure, that makes total sense. But bringing this down to the personal level for you listening, the text points out that knowledge workers spend about 28% of their week just managing email,
28%?
and another 19% searching for internal information.
It's painful.
That is nearly half your week gone to just administration, just digging for things. Agents reclaim all that cognitive capacity.
And they reclaim it by synthesizing information across organizational silos. Instead of you spending 45 minutes digging through the HR system, then the CRM, then your inbox just to piece together the context for a single decision.
Which we've all done.
Right. The agent's reasoning engine queries all those databases simultaneously and surfaces the unified context automatically.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second. Is this really just about doing the exact same work, but faster? Because if it is, aren't we just building a hyper-efficient hamster wheel?
How do you mean?
Like an agent saves you 30 hours of administrative digging, so the company just piles on 30 more hours of the exact same busy work?
That is the natural fear, right? Whenever new automation is introduced, that's what people worry about. But the data from these early adopters suggests something entirely different. It's actually about a shift in innovation velocity. When that operational overhead vanishes, human attention naturally shifts toward strategy, customer engagement, and, creative problem solving. The text highlights a fascinating new organizational metric that early adopters are tracking. It's called the innovation rate.
Innovation rate, so not just the volume of output.
Exactly. They aren't measuring how many emails you send or how many reports you filed. They are tracking how frequently new ideas are being generated, tested, and actually implemented in the market.
That's a huge shift in mindset.
It is. In an agent-augmented economy, competitive advantage comes from creative differentiation, not operational efficiency. Delaying adoption is incredibly dangerous for companies. It doesn't just mean you lose some time, it means permanent competitive disadvantage.
Because of the compounding effects.
Precisely due to compounding network effects. When an early mover company deploys agents, those agents learn from the company's specific proprietary data and workflows. Every single day, the agents get slightly more accurate and slightly more customized to that company's unique environment. So by the time a latecomer decides to adopt the technology 2 years from now, the early movers' agents are exponentially smarter and faster.
They're just miles ahead.
The latecomer simply won't be able to catch up to that geometric progression of capability.
Okay, let's get into the architecture of this. Because if I'm a business leader or just an employee, the idea of autonomous agents running around my company's servers making decisions, I mean, it sounds slightly terrifying.
It does sound a bit risky.
Wait, let me stop it there before we go further.
Yeah.
I understand an agent drafting an email, but how does it actually know what data to pull from the CRM? Is it searching with keywords like we do, or is it doing something else entirely?
Oh, it's doing something much more sophisticated than a keyword search. It uses vector embeddings.
Vector embeddings.
Yeah, which basically map the meaning of words and data points into a mathematical space. So it searches for the concept of what is needed rather than just matching text strings.
Oh.
But going back to your point about the terror of autonomous agents running wild, that is the primary architectural challenge here. The solution outlined in the research is a collaboration-first architectural approach.
What does that look like?
Well, You cannot have agents sitting in a separate, isolated application where you have to go visit them. They must be embedded directly into the infrastructure where the work actually
So
happens.
they need to live inside the tools we already use every day.
Exactly. They need rich contextual signals. They need to observe which projects are active, which stakeholders are involved, and, what the current state of a document is. Look at Microsoft Copilot.
Right, they're putting it everywhere.
It's embedded directly into Teams, Outlook, Word. A salesperson sitting in a Teams meeting doesn't have to switch windows. They can have the agent summarize the live audio of the meeting, pull the corresponding CRM data using that semantic search we just talked about, and draft the agenda right there in the flow of work.
That answers the integration part, for sure. But how do companies prevent them from causing absolute chaos, or worse, leaking highly sensitive data? Like, if Salesforce is doing something similar with Agentforce, how are they putting a leash on this reasoning engine?
So Agentforce is an orchestration platform. Once you have multiple agents operating across different departments, you absolutely need a way to govern them. The orchestration platform essentially places a guardrail prompt around the large language model.
A guardrail prompt.
Yeah. Before the agent takes an action, like, say, sending a patient's medical data in an email, that proposed action has to pass through a secondary evaluation layer.
Oh, I see.
This secondary model checks the action against predefined privacy rules, like IPI in healthcare, for example. If the proposed action violates the rule, it is instantly blocked and routed to a human for review. It strictly governs what the agent is allowed to do autonomously versus what absolutely requires human approval.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the text points out that the biggest roadblock to this magical, seamless AI future isn't actually the AI itself. It's something called integration debt.
Yes, the messy, disconnected legacy systems that plague most organizations.
I mean, integration debt is like hiring a world-class chief of staff who speaks 10 languages, but placing them in an office where the filing cabinets are locked, the internet is cut, and half the team speaks in a secret code.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
The intelligence is there, but the infrastructure just paralyzes it. A company might have a completely brilliant AI agent, but if their CRM doesn't talk to their HR software via clean APIs and their data structures are just a disorganized disaster, the agent literally cannot perceive its environment. Fixing that integration debt is costly, but it is an absolute prerequisite.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, governance isn't just a technical challenge involving those secondary evaluation models. It is deeply cultural. The architecture has to include clear human ownership. Organizations must assign agent owners.
So a human is explicitly responsible for the behavior of the software.
Precisely. If an agent makes an error or hallucinates incorrect information or misses a critical deadline, a specific human must be accountable for refining its behavior.
They're like a manager for the AI.
Right. The owner reviews the agent's action logs and updates its parameters or instructions. It prevents agents from becoming these neglected, chaotic systems that degrade over time. It creates a continuous loop of human oversight and improvement.
But even if you perfectly solve that integration debt, even if the CRM and HR systems are talking seamlessly, you still have a massive biological variable in the room. How does an actual human employee react when you tell them an autonomous software entity is now their peer?
It all comes down to change management and psychological safety. I mean, technology deployment is completely useless if the workforce actively rejects it.
Which happens a lot.
Oh, all the time. The research shows that if workers fear replacement, they view the agents with suspicion. They might even sabotage the implementation by withholding the feedback the agent actually needs to improve. But if they trust the organization's motives, they embrace the assistance.
The text gives some incredible examples of how companies are handling this culturally. Unilever created an entire internal AI academy. But what I love is how they framed it. They didn't call them efficiency tools, which sounds a lot like we want you to do more work in less time.
Right, that always scares people.
Yeah. They framed the agents as creativity enablers. This allowed their marketers and supply chain planners to stop manually forecasting routine data and actually focus on strategic optimization.
That framing makes all the difference. DoorDash took an approach centered around rapid experimentation. They didn't try to build a perfect, omnipotent system from day one.
What do they do instead?
They deployed narrow agents, like an agent specifically designed for optimizing delivery route assignments, and then they relied on daily feedback from their drivers and customer service reps to iterate.
Wait, how does that feedback actually change the software? Like, if a DoorDash driver says a route is terrible, what does the agent do with that information?
It uses a reinforcement learning mechanism.
Oh,
When the human driver flags a route as inefficient, that feedback acts as a negative reward signal for the agent's underlying model.
okay.
So the model automatically adjusts the mathematical weights in its decision-making algorithm so that it is much less likely to generate that specific type of route in the future. They built a culture where the AI making an error wasn't a crisis, it was just a necessary data point for tomorrow's update.
The example that really stuck with me, though, was the Cleveland Clinic. It perfectly illustrates human-agent partnership. They didn't use agents to replace radiologists. The agents pre-analyzed the radiology images, they flagged potential abnormalities by comparing the scan against millions of previous examples, and they surfaced the relevant patient history.
That's huge.
But a human doctor makes the final diagnostic call. And the result? Radiologists reported massive drops in cognitive fatigue.
Which makes sense, right? Reviewing perfectly normal, healthy scans for 8 hours a day is exhausting. The agent filters the routine, preserving the human's cognitive energy for the complex, ambiguous cases where human judgment and empathy are actually critical.
But thinking about those radiologists makes me worry about my own daily workflow. Think about the last time you reviewed a junior employee's work. You spotted the error because you spent 5 years making that exact same error yourself.
Right, exactly.
If an agent does all that foundational routine work for you now, how do you train your intuition? If the AI is pre-reading the scans or pre-writing the code, do we face a crisis of skill atrophy?
It is a very real, documented risk. The text addresses this using the 2023 Noy and Zhang research. They studied the impact of AI assistants on different skill levels and found a very nuanced dynamic.
What do they find?
Mid-level professionals actually benefit the most from AI assistants. They already possess enough foundational knowledge to independently evaluate the AI's output, spot the subtle errors, and elevate the final product.
Okay, that makes sense.
But lower-skilled workers, the novices, risk extreme over-reliance. They blindly trust the agent because they simply don't know any better.
The AI acts as a crutch rather than an exoskeleton.
Exactly. And the implication is massive for corporate training. Organizations must intentionally develop foundational human capabilities, things like critical thinking, ethical judgment, and deep domain expertise, before introducing heavy AI augmentation to their junior staff. You still need to possess the underlying knowledge of what good work looks like in order to partner with an agent effectively and correct its mistakes.
This means the entire structure of the modern company has to evolve. Because human-AI partnership changes the very nature of our daily tasks, the operating model has to keep up.
It really does. It requires continuous feedback loops. Unlike traditional software, which just sits on a server until the IT department pushes the next annual update, agent systems evolve constantly based on real-world interactions.
They're live, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Companies are using usage analytics, outcome measurement, and error tracking to combine algorithmic learning with constant human review. But beyond the software evolving, the actual job roles themselves are shifting radically.
The Accenture example in the text illustrates this shift perfectly.
Yeah.
They overhauled their operating model entirely. Because of AI, they require far fewer junior analysts to sit in cubicles and do routine data crunching.
Yep.
But simultaneously, they're dramatically expanding the roles of their senior strategists. A single strategist can now manage much larger client portfolios because they have a team of autonomous agents handling the foundational analysis. But to make that transition work, Accenture had to implement massive reskilling programs to move employees from routine analytical work up into those high-value advisory roles.
That's a massive pivot.
It is. So what does this all mean? It means that competitive advantage no longer stems from simply how hard or how fast your human employees can work. It stems from how effectively your humans and your agents collaborate to produce outcomes that neither biological brains nor silicon processors could achieve alone.
This raises an important question. If you're listening right now, think about your own job description. How would it change if all your routine administrative tasks were automated tomorrow?
It's a scary thought for some.
It is, but what would your unique value be to your organization? This isn't a hypothetical exercise anymore. The IDC research notes that 75% of businesses find it easier to hire when they offer this integrated tech. Top talent literally expects this level of augmentation as a baseline now.
Wow, so it's a recruiting tool.
Absolutely. If you are interviewing top talent and you tell them they have to manually reconcile spreadsheets for 4 hours a day, they will immediately go to your competitor who has an agent handling that workload.
To quickly recap the journey we've been on today, AI agents have officially shifted from sci-fi speculation to enterprise reality. By using large language models as reasoning engines to perceive, decide, and act, they're no longer just faster search engines or better grammar checkers. They are autonomous collaborators.
Without a doubt.
They are saving early adopters dozens of hours a week. They are demanding completely new collaboration-first architectures that solve integration debt. And they are fundamentally reshaping how we measure innovation, structure our teams, and define our organizational cultures.
As we wrap up, I really want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about Generation Alpha, and we talked about the real risk of skill atrophy.
Right.
If future generations of workers enter a workforce where AI agents flawlessly handle all the foundational routine tasks, the data gathering, the basic drafting, the initial analysis, how will they ever build the complex intuition and judgment that today's senior leaders gained precisely by doing those routine tasks for years? Are we at risk of automating the very training ground of human expertise?
That is the paradox we're all going to have to solve. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into these sources. As you go back to your own workflow this week, keep an eye on where those routine tasks are eating your cognitive capacity. Think about how you can actively shape the trajectory of this intelligent era in your own career rather than just being shaped by it. Because the research is clear. The future of work isn't just about human effort anymore. It's about the agentic edge. We'll catch you next time.